Alright, let's talk a little bit about what you just saw. So, first of all, when you are standing outside versus inside, there are different sounds that will be playing. I've got on the first person blueprint over here, simple script that determines whether or not you're standing inside or outside the house, and all that'll do is swap the sound mix, which will mute the indoor sounds when you're outside and vice versa. And it will also activate different reverb effects so that when you're outdoor things will be echoing more. You'll notice the shotgun reverberated a lot more when you're standing outside. And the way I did that is there is a collider inside of the house, and it just detects whether or not you're inside of that. Let's put that back. Another thing you probably noticed is that the different surfaces had different footstep sounds. So you have the grass, the dirt, the water, and then inside the house, the tile. And the way that worked is I modified the first person animation blueprint so that every time this event triggered from the walking cycle, which would play twice per animation, so once per step, it would do a raycast downwards from where the player is, detect what kind of surface they're standing on. So if they're standing on the tile, I just have the physics material tile assigned to the block, but for everything outdoors, it goes into the terrain, and based on the paint tool, determines what is the most prominent material on the ground there. So you have it for grass, dirt, tile, water. It selects that over here and picks a random sample. It goes backwards a little bit, so there's 3 different samples for each sound, and it'll randomly pick that, and also randomizes the pitch and volume just a little bit to make the sound a little bit more varied. And there is a lot of ducking and sounds affecting each other. I've got my master track here, and you can see I've got master, SFX, ambience, flashbang is its own category. I'll explain that just a little bit. Outdoor sounds, indoor sounds, those are the ambient sounds you hear, like the air conditioning and the light buzz inside and the guns firing outside. The waterfall and fake indoor, so I'll get back to that in just a little bit. Outdoor and indoor are just the ambient sounds. Waterfall is that giant blue cylinder outside that is supposed to be a waterfall. As you approach that, it applies waterfall ducking, which takes the outdoor sound and lowers it as the waterfall gets louder. And SFX, whenever you trigger a footstep sound or fire your gun, it triggers a ducking mix, which just lowers the ambience very, very briefly. You can't really hear it, but it prevents it from getting too loud. And flashbang is its own category, because as you could see when I threw the flashbang at the end, everything muted out for a little bit and gradually came back in, much like a real flashbang. Now let's come back to fake indoor real quick. Let me close this. So you'll notice as I got closer to the door from outside, you could start to hear the ambient sounds from inside. So how I did that was I had a 3D sound outside the door that played the indoor ambience, and as soon as you went into the house it would mute that and you would be hearing the 2D ambience sounds. So you'll notice on this and the waterfall, the fade out is quite large. That's just because I've got natural attenuation, so that drops off very quickly. And the one last thing I'd like to show is the modified first-person character script. I added these 2 sections down here. So fire gun is just what happens when you fire your shotgun. It just plays all the animations. I didn't write this part. But then over here, I modified it to play the firing sound, click 1, click 2, so those combine to be like a click-click sound when you hear it pumping. And I've got the pitch slightly different on the second one. And then the last sound, you couldn't really hear this too well, it was very small. A shell sound of like an empty shotgun shell falling on the ground. It would pick one of 5 random samples. And all of these have a slightly randomized delay between them, as well as randomized volume and pitch. Once again, very small range. And then over here is the script I wrote for triggering the flashbang. And all that does is play 3 different samples. The only reason I broke that up is to properly trigger the attenuation on everything dropping in and out. You can see slight delay between everything, and once again randomize the volume and pitch on some stuff, and it just plays us from where the actor is. And that's about it. I was able to put this together in about a week, starting with learning Unreal and putting together a soundscape. And I gotta say, I'm a real fan of the whole visual programming aspect of putting in sounds. Very intuitive. Alright, thanks.